and welcome to another episode of Diary of a Professional. I am Ashley,
Hey y'all, Lou again.
and we have our lovely guest, Mesa, registered dietitian, and cannot wait to speak with her further. So, before we get into all of that, let's go into our week of gratitude. How was everyone's week? I don't know who wants to go first.
I'll go quickly. I am, as cliche as it is, I am grateful for life. Because this week I've been seeing some death, and, not to say that it was unexpected, but it's always sad and, young. And it just makes me it reminds me to appreciate how short life can be, how you just hope that whatever you put into this world was good, that, you don't have to have won so many awards, but you impacted people so that they will cry for you when you leave and will remember you and remember you for good things. So just remind myself to put out that kind of good energy out there and just be grateful for the time I do have or the time I've even had, even if it, like, God forbid, ends tomorrow. So those kind of blessings.
Oh, absolutely. I feel that one. It's so interesting how we can take life for granted, right? We just like wake up and just start moving and, not taking that moment of like, wow, I'm here today. I have a roof over my head. I have clothes. I have water. I'm breathing fresh air,
Yes.
Yeah, so I understand. Okay, I'll go. I guess mine is pretty simple. I'm just grateful for no longer having headaches. I think I experienced my first migraine, y'all.
Really?
Yes, like for like 3 days straight, I was having like this pounding pressure headache in the front. Like it's bothering one eye. I was getting shooting pains. And at first I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm dying. I'm like, oh my God, I'm starting to freak out. Of course, it subsided. Thankfully, today, really, I'm a whole lot better. But I was like, wow, I really feel and understand people who have migraines. This is no joke. This is no joke. So I'm grateful to feel better. And if this ever happens again, I really have to see like medical attention, seeing medical attention. But it was interesting because during that time, I was like, maybe I'm not drinking enough water. Maybe I'm not sleeping enough. Maybe I'm not eating right, And I realized, I think, yeah, I'm thinking like, maybe I'm just not in tune with myself. And am I super stressed, But yeah, which I have been stressed. Work has been stressful. But yeah, I'm just happy to feel like I feel like myself again. No more headaches, and I'm ready for this episode. So yeah.
Oh, well, I'm grateful that you no longer have a headache because
Thank
headaches can be
you.
really debilitating. I like every month, that's my alarm for when my period is coming. I just get like a 2 or 3 day headache.
And it just hits you, you
Yeah,
know?
it really does.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
So
but
tell us
y-
your gratitude for this.
I am grateful for having a roof over my head, actually. So you mentioned that in your gratitude, and I know that we were talking about the horrible hurricane that the west coast of Florida just experienced. So while that was on its way, we're actually getting our roof redone. And I was very nervous that it was going to come our way and blow our roof off because it wasn't done. But I'm grateful that we still have a roof. Unfortunately, it had to go elsewhere, but I'm just grateful that we dodged this one. I don't know how much longer we're going to be lucky for.
Yeah. And that was no joke from what we were seeing. I was like, oh my gosh. Hurricane season is no joke.
Florida, God bless y'all. Y'all a different kind of breed of people, because I'm going to leave it at that.
Yeah,
In
no,
many different ways.
absolutely. And, I'm just happy you're okay. Everyone's okay. Thank
Yeah,
goodness,
I'm
for
glad your
sure.
family's okay too.
Yeah. So let's get into our topic. Let's speak about you, Deanna. So, as a registered dietitian and a diabetic educator, please like introduce yourself to everyone and at least tell us like why nutrition, you know? What made you go into this profession?
Why nutrition? That's the question, right? It definitely wasn't for the money. um, so I'm Diana Mesa. I'm based in Florida, Miami, Florida, and I was born in Cuba. So just like a little background about me, I've been in Miami for most of my adult life, most of my childhood as well, actually. But here in Miami, it's like Cuba away from Cuba, Caribbean, you know, we're in the Caribbean, you know, so you can find any Caribbean country, like little Havana, little Haiti, you know, it's very, very prominent down here. And so I feel like I never left where I was supposed to be because I'm very much a tropical girl. So trying to keep it here in the tropics. So why nutrition and why diabetes? Because I think both career choices, like, you know, my experiences have kind of led me down this path. First nutrition, then diabetes, as I started kind of like understanding what I wanted, what my purpose was. And so I've always wanted to help people. Obviously, that's kind of like everyone who goes into any sort of medical field, they're like, oh, I want to help people. Okay, cool. So I wanted to help people. That's something I've always liked. I'm very much a people person. And I was waiting tables for like 12 years through high school, through college. So I was already working with food, you know, in the nitty gritty. We did a little bit of serving. We did a little bit of takeout, did a little bit of like expoing where you get the tickets, you kind of call out the order to the chefs and they make the food. So I did that for many years and I just really love food. It's definitely a passion of mine. So the hustle and bustle of, you know, the serving industry is too much. It's a very heavy toll on the body. And so it got to the point where, you know, I was like in my mid-20s, I was like, all right, this is not sustainable. Been doing this for quite some time and I'm getting kind of tired. You know, my feet hurt. My bunions are like throbbing from 12-hour shifts. So, so I had to find another option. So I went back to school. At first I was studying architecture. So I thought that my passion was in architecture, interior design. Mind you, I graduated high school in 2008. So that's kind of like when the economy crashed and construction and architects and everything, you know. So that wasn't really a well thought out choice. But as life would have it, I decided I needed a break. School wasn't really lighting me up. I didn't want to go back to another semester of architecture classes. And so I decided to take a very challenging math class, which is like college algebra. I'm not very good at math. And an elective, which was nutrition. So I excelled in the nutrition class. I got straight A's. I got like 100% in all of my tests and quizzes. And I was like, damn, this really lights me up. I really like this. Mm-hmm. And then I decided to change my major. So the fact that I already really love food and the fact that it just kind of came naturally to me and that I would be able to help people, that started my kind of path into the nutrition field. And then once I got my feet wet and started working in the community, and then, you know, started going to school for it and all of that jazz, that's when it really kind of snowballed and a bunch of other connections were made in my little brain.
Yeah. I love it. I love this story. That's
For
so
the people
dope.
who don't know, can you give us like a definition of like what a registered dietitian is, what you do, that kind of thing?
Yeah, that's a great question. So a registered dietitian is a person who has gone through 4 years of undergraduate courses in science, biology, chemistry, biochemistry, counseling, nutrition education, piecing everything together. So then you have to apply for an internship, which is a very challenging process. I almost didn't get matched my first time. And then it was very difficult and expensive to afford. Had to take out like a loan just for an internship, right? Not even for a master's degree. So the internship was about 8 months. You can't really work too much through that. So I made it work though. I found little catering gigs and things. And then you sit for a board exam. You got to pass your board exam. Once you pass your board exam, then you get your RD credential. Here in the state of Florida, you also need a license. It doesn't require any more testing. It just requires that you pay like $250 to the Department of Health so that they can give you a license.
Of course.
So that's like what you got to do to become an RD. But what RDs do, that could look different. So you could work at a hospital. You could do like calculations for tube feedings and things like that. You could work in a clinic where you're doing more counseling and education. You could be an entrepreneur. You can have a private practice. You could do so many things with the nutrition degree. So, and with the RD credentials. So that's a good thing. You just got to know how to move, you know?
Right. Yeah. Get in where you fit in.
No, absolutely.
Exactly.
And like, what made you want to work for your people, your community, you know, for example?
Yeah.
What made you want to do that?
That is when well, first of all, let's rewind because this goes way back to childhood, right? And the things that I heard growing up around food, the relationship that was developed with food as a child due to like the conversations around my household, you know, what they clean your plate, you know, but at the same time, don't eat so much. You're going to get fat, you know, or, you know, you're going to have another plate. So anyway, that created a lot of like awareness that, especially later in my career, when I started working with people with diabetes, that the way that we, you know, my community, Latinos, Cuban people, Caribbean people, we're all very, very similar.
Mm-hmm.
We are raising our kids to have a disordered relationship with food. And that's causing a lot of other issues, you know, like eating disorders. And then when you go into the field of diabetes, there's a lot to talk about there. That's a lot to unpack. I mean, where do you want to start, right? Our communities are the most underserved when it comes to access to medical services, preventive services, testing, screening. And so that's just one layer of it, right? We got time to get into the nitty gritty.
Mm-hmm. I think a lot of that, I feel like in our communities, they just say, you know, for me, I'm Haitian. So it's like the phrase is "ou fait sucre," like you have sugar. So people think it's only a sugar thing. Like my sugar is high and that's all it is. And diabetes has so many more implications than that. Do you mind getting into some of that for us? Especially,
not at all,
you know,
here,
diabetes type 2. So there's obviously there's two types for those who don't know, but we're specifically talking about type 2 diabetes.
Yeah, we're talking about type 2. Yeah.
That's right. Absolutely. So, I mean, with type 2 diabetes, it's multifactorial. It's not just one thing. We have to take into consideration our genetics. We have to take into consideration our trauma, our generational trauma. There's a lot of studies that relate adverse childhood events to a higher risk of developing diabetes later in life. So, you know, this is happening in childhood, and that's just like one snippet of what we're looking into, right? We're talking about environmental exposure to things. If we're living in communities that have been created in such a way to where, and I say created very purposely because, you know, this wasn't done by accident, created in such a way to where we are being exposed to things. Like I think about, we have an area here, it's called Doral. There's a lot of Venezuelans who live there. It's some people call it Doralzuela. So it's almost like little, you know, I mentioned every country has like a little town here. So that's the Venezuelans area there in Doral. They have a giant, like a dump site there. And I just think about how that affects all the people that live in that area, you know, all of that waste that's being processed there, what sort of like things are being released into the atmosphere and what that could be doing to their health. You know, we want to talk about like urban planning, right? How much walking area is there for people to go out and walk safely? You know, are there bike lanes? Are there parks? Are there green spaces? Tell me. I see a light bulb.
No, you're absolutely like it blows my mind because I work primarily with patients with cancer, whatever, and there are times where it's like there's like we could have like all of a sudden a particular type of leukemia come in like 3 in 1 week, and you're like, what's going on? Or you'll have this kid, this kid, this kid, and you realize they're all from the same town, and it's like, is there something in the water? Like literally, is there something in the water that all kids like yes have this prevalence of these kind of cancers that are coming from this particular place? Do they have like more, electrical fields, like they would say, or different things going on that you're just like, something's not adding up? But like you said,
Exactly.
that might be, it just happens, maybe the groundwater, but a lot of times, in these project areas, or whether it's food deserts and what's accessible, that's not by mistake.
Absolutely. And, those are all the things. Recently, there was an article published. I don't know if you guys saw it on Instagram. It was kind of going viral, but New York Times published an article talking about how researchers who research diabetes found that there is no medication that can undo the effects of like chronic stress and, lack of access to care, so on and so forth. What we call social determinants of health. There's no magical pill. There's nothing that's going to counteract the impacts of those things for people with diabetes. And we've been saying this for a long time, like it's great that y'all are finally catching on, but like New York Times, thanks for publishing it. But we've been talking about this in the field, because we see it in practice.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. And
so it was
that
intersection. I'm sorry. You go
no,
ahead.
go
I'm
ahead.
getting
No, tell
excited. Like the intersection of the intersection of, the impact that our environments, our traumas, our experiences have on our health. And then the fact that the nutrition recommendations don't align with our cultural foods. That's like, and then the body image issues that our people have because of the standards of beauty that we're being put up against. So I could keep talking.
Let's speak on that too. I love that you are not like weight normative. Like you don't really provide that weight normative care. You're more weight inclusive. And I was just curious too why you chose that approach, because I feel like it can be daunting just going to the doctor's office, right? Because the first thing they do is like check our weight, boop, check your BMI. Like I remember like a few years ago, I go in, my doctor's like, oh, you're overweight. You need to lose this weight, X amount of weight. Now, you're more at risk for this, this, and that. Like, I was like, wait, you need to get rid of carbs, get rid of this. And I was just like freaking out. Like, how did I reach to this point?
Scare
and I'm like, but I don't want to get rid of the foods that I enjoy. You cannot let me get rid of plantain. First,
of course not.
Like, that is staying with me. Everything will have some plantain. Some
As
plantain.
It should.
Exactly.
As it should. Absolutely.
So I was just wondering, like, wow, like, I just love that you did take that approach. And I was wondering why you did choose that approach, So I want to know, how do you make people comfortable enjoying their like cultural foods and make them feel like this is healthy choices for them as well, and not making them feel like, oh my gosh, I shouldn't be having foods that I love.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, it's a lot of like unlearning, and sometimes it's an uphill battle. So it was like a 2-part question. But both of them are actually very related, because this experience really, really informed the way that I practice now. Right at the beginning of the pandemic, I changed jobs. I started working in a clinic. This was right before COVID, like 10 days before the stay-at-home order. I
Wow.
started working in this clinic, actually in Doral. That was just one of the clinics, also in Kendall, just in Latino communities. And so because of insurance coverage, the majority of the people that we saw were people with prediabetes and diabetes. That's just what the insurance covers. So at least they're covering something. That's better than nothing. But these people would be told by their doctors that they need to lose X amount of weight in order to be healthy. And as we know, weight loss does not equate health. And so the focus was just it was very, very weight centric. Weight centric is the perfect way to explain it. Perfect, or rather weight normative is the words that you used, which is a perfect phrase to explain it. And so that weight normative approach was really doing damage to these people because they were focusing so much on losing that X amount of weight, 20 pounds, which is like a made up number because these doctors weren't even getting it from anywhere. Like if they're getting it from an ideal body weight chart, that's flawed too. And dietitians don't even use ideal body weight charts. I mean, I can't even think of exceptions. I'm sure somebody clinical can, but I don't want to think of exceptions because we need to throw that out and start over anyway.
Exactly.
So, they would fear the weight part so much that it would become the only thing that we talk about. And then if I told them that they could eat just a little bit of white rice, they'd look at me like I'm an alien, like I don't know what I'm talking about. Like I'm not the dietitian. What was that?
More like the enemy, because I don't know a Caribbean island who is not putting rice with something and everything.
Okay, so I mean, do I have to change my rice for cauliflower? No. Oh, but my doctor told me. But, I with all due respect, the doctor, that's what I'm here for. It's very difficult to like kind of not undermine the doctor who's giving these just bad recommendations, talking about no white rice, no potato, no white bread, no, like that does not have to be the life of somebody with diabetes. Like people with diabetes can live full, enjoyable lives and still, enjoy the things that they grew up eating. How are you going to tell a Cuban not to eat rice and beans or a Venezuelan to stop eating arepas? You can't.
No.
And I think that is a detriment because instead of teaching moderation or how to substitute, it's going to be one way or the other. They're just going to completely, repel against it. And then you're left with nothing.
And you bring up such a good point because that's like the pendulum swing, right? How long can you really go without the plantain? How long? Only so long.
I have plantain every day. I have like 2 slices every day. I kid you not. Fried, boiled, smashed.
Delicious.
I need to have a little something.
You can't go wrong with plátano, So what happens is that when you restrict for so long, your mind starts obsessing, right? Coño, I want that plátano. I really want that plátano. And then before you know it, you have the whole plátano instead of allowing yourself to enjoy plátano as often as you want, where it's not something that's like taboo or prohibited. It's something that is always there. It's not a big deal, right? When we put these foods on like a pedestal or the opposite of a pedestal, we're bringing a lot more like focus to it and it makes us obsess more over it. So that, in my eyes, that's not very effective if we're trying to have sustainable habits and sustainable changes.
Mm-hmm. I completely agree with that. Trust me. And I think that's important for us to know as well, that we don't feel like we can't enjoy these foods that we know and love. I think it's so crucial. But also, I'm just curious about like your different thoughts on all these different fads and diets that people like obsess over, like Atkins diets, keto diets, and like, do you think people actually see actual results from them?
Yes, but we gotta really ask ourselves what it is that we want. We want those short-term results, or do we want long-term sustainable health? You know, and at what cost? So when I first started my career, I worked with a doctor in functional medicine, and functional medicine tends to like lean a little bit toward that kind of stuff, like intermittent fasting and keto and, you know, things like that. And that's fine. Like, you know, if people want to do that, they can do that. But when they're ready to like make, you know, adopt those long-term behavior changes, then we can talk. Cause I've done that. I've seen it work for a bit. And then I've seen people get tired of it and end up, you know, if the goal was to lose weight, they may have even gained more after it, they can't sustain it anymore. And then they feel like a failure. Like, why can't I keep doing this? You know, what's wrong with me? I was doing so good. And, you know, back when I was doing keto, but now look at me. And it's like, keto's not sustainable. You know, maybe if you're like in a bodybuilding competition or something and that's what you're doing, then hey, maybe something like counting calories and macros and stuff is appropriate. But is that the reality for most people? No, it's not my reality.
And a lot of times if you don't properly like wean off those diets, it can be very detrimental to your health, you know, because in not knowing how the body works and how you were able to lose all that weight by just eating bacon and eggs or whatever, you know, there's a science behind it. And that's why people like you go to school, to teach us and educate us.
Exactly. And actually, even when I was doing keto with that functional doctor, a lot of the, you know, carb sources were fiber. So it was like a lot of non-starchy vegetables, a lot of healthy fats, like avocado, nuts, and seeds, which, you know, they have fiber, which is technically a carb. So you gotta, you know, I wasn't promoting the heavy cream and bacon and eggs. And it's like, we got to have some moderation because that's not sustainable either. And that's not going to be, you know, quote unquote healthy for some people. Some people might tolerate it just fine, but some people, it might really affect their cholesterol, might affect their digestion significantly. I've even heard that it affects your body odor. So is it worth it?
Eating a lot of meat can cause like changes in your body odor, like
constipation, you know, like if you're not getting any fiber and you're not like hydrating enough because, you know, carbs and water, they're best friends.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to get constipated, or you might have what we like to call steatorrhea, fat malabsorption. It's not pleasant.
You don't have to say that twice. I hear that.
Don't Google it.
Nah, you don't want them problems. You don't.
No. Okay. But let us know where we can find you. Let us know where we can find you and really like buy your book and just support you. If anyone, like let us know. Yes, please let us know. Let us know. Let the people know. You have to.
Thank you. Thank you for the shout out. So I'm most active on my Instagram. It's at enlamesanutrition. You can also get my book on the website, www.enlamesanutrition.com/shop. Right there in both English and Spanish. It's called Better Blood Sugars for Latinos. It's right now the first edition. I had to kind of narrow down the scope a little bit to Spanish speaking Latin countries, but my goal is to include Haiti and Brazil and even Belize in there as well for the second edition, and like, you know, include other Latin people in the community, because even though you don't speak Spanish, you're still Latin.
Conversation, ma'am.
That's another conversation.
Do you mentioned you were Haitian. Do you identify as Latin?
So I just started recognizing that I am, even though I don't identify as such.
Got it. So I always like to ask, one of my best friends is Haitian, and she says that she does identify as Latin, and she said that a lot of Haitians don't even, I guess, realize that they fall into the Latin category. And I know that is definitely a whole nother podcast episode right there that we can discuss.
Yes.
Yes. Girl. But yeah. But I'm happy with your, I might need to talk to your friend because I want to know what got her to that place.
Yeah, I can definitely link you all up.
Yeah, that'd be a pretty good episode.
That would be a really
As
good
the next
episode
is brewing right now as we speak.
Okay, I'll connect you all after this call. Yeah, so
but yeah,
you can find it there.
I'm not
very active on TikTok or anything, so
love it.
But yes, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for giving these like nuggets of knowledge to all of us in our communities. And, you know, we hope to speak to you soon. You're so amazing.
Thank you. I'm sending you ladies a virtual hug. Thank you so much for bringing me in. I'm honored.
Yes, thank you. So, all right, everyone. Till next time, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Give it a like, subscribe, tell us your thoughts. Till next time.
Yes, love you.
Bye.